Well, greetings, people of the internet. It's late. I'm coming to you from the set of Monkey Joe's Playhouse. Today, I've spent the last few days learning a new skill that I may or may not ever need again. So that line I just fed you before the intro was called a teaser, and that's to whet your appetite and get you to come back and watch the rest of the video. This video is, in essence, has taken up about the last week and a half, 2 weeks of my life. Well, not completely. You know, I've done some other stuff. I still have my daily chores to do around the house. I still have clients to maintain. But every spare minute has been used getting to know Launchbox-Bigbox, Retroarch emulation, PS2 emulation, everything I could cram into this old brain of mine. Now, I love retro gaming. We've got, if you don't know, we have the unit in the Silverstone case that is set up for the living room, and then we have the board cube on the bench that is set up. And I put my retro gaming on here as well so that I can experiment on this unit before I unleash it on the spouse, because the spouse likes their game saves to be right where they are and make it easy. So I've been experimenting, and I've got the unit in the living room with all the information I've gleaned over the last few weeks up to where I want it to be, where it's running beautifully. You know, I can't say enough good things about it. And so now I'm mimicking that here on the board cube. Now, this is the unit that's running the i7-3770 processor. It's the board I got from China, an older Gigabyte board that supports a CPU. And I've got an RX 570, AMD RX 570 video card in there. It's actually a Gigabyte card, but, you know, AMD makes the video. 500 watt power supply. It's got an SSD drive in there. More than powerful enough to do retro gaming. And the hope is that I'll also be able to do some Steam games on this unit as well. My main complaint has been there is not a soup to nuts, and let's get something straight, this is not soup to nuts either, but there is not a soup to nuts video out there on using Launchbox-Bigbox-Retroarch and any other emulators out there that you might be inclined to use. It's kind of a, you know, a seat of the pants kind of thing, and I have watched video after video, and I've had to try and fail and succeed over and over again because I am a hands-on tactical learner. So I've had to fail several times so that you don't have to when setting up your emulation station. Because trust me, some of the stuff you get on the net about how to tell you how to set this up is dead wrong, and you'll go down a rabbit hole after rabbit hole. So this video is to help clear some of that up. I'm going to show you how I got my RetroArch, my Big Box, my Launchbox, and other emulators set up. I'm mainly focusing on Nintendo emulation, Sega Genesis emulation, and PS2 emulation. So as I learn new emulators, I'll share them with you in other videos. Now again, this is not a soup to nuts video, but I'm going to show you how I got everything set up and got it running here at Monkey Joe's Playhouse. So let's get that part of the video started right now. All right, so this should be fun. You know, it's really kind of sad. I have a capture device for HDMI, but I'm so lazy I haven't set it up to use it yet. Well, I played with it one time, but I just thought it was more trouble than it's worth. I got to train myself on how to use it. So for now, you're stuck with me taking a picture of the actual TV screen. This is a Vizio, I think 42-inch screen in my office. So the first thing I wanted to show you was RetroArch and how to get that set up. And so I'm going to go into, see if I can find my RetroArch folder. I've got it here, and then hopefully this camera will do a good job of focusing in on stuff. So here we go. I've got RetroArch now set up. Now I'm using my controller, my Xbox 360 controller, so it's working fine. So What I had to do though was you have to go and load the cores that you need. But basically I've loaded these cores: Nintendo, GameCube, Wii, Dolphin. In my attempt to get things to work, I installed all these cores. I probably don't need all of them, but basically you come here to install or remove, to download a core, and then you go down and select your gaming station that you want to emulate, and you, for example, let's say we wanted to do the Game Boy. Hit enter, and hit your green button on your controller, and you'll notice it puts a pound sign next to the core downloader, and then basically you're ready to go. The thing that was tripping me up is I was coming in here under controllers and messing with stuff, and I'm going to be honest with you, the only thing I've actually done now is to load these cores in RetroArch, and that's all I use this part of RetroArch for. You could also import your content here and try them, but I wouldn't worry myself with this. You're going to make, Launchbox is going to be the controlling, Launchbox and BigBox are going to be what controls your interface with RetroArch. So all RetroArch needs to know is what cores you want it to use to play what games. So I'm going to go ahead and quit RetroArch, and that's basically how I configured it in the most simplest of terms. Now, PCSX2 1.6.0 is the emulator I use for PS2 games. So I'm going to come up here, and I installed they have a portable version of it. I installed it just like I did with RetroArch. But basically I launched it, and I'm going to come here to config, and I'm going to go to emulation settings. And what I did is I set my aspect ratio automatically to widescreen 16:9, because I believe normally it comes set up as fit to Windows screen. I want all mine playing as widescreen. So that is one of the settings I changed. Then another setting I changed is, let's see, video. I want to say it was under plugin settings. Yeah, under plugin settings, and I've told it for the GSDX settings, I changed my internal resolution to 720p for this monitor, so that I get, I assume it's upscaling. I read this somewhere and thought I'd give it a try, but just to let you know, it's working for me. I need to do a little more. I need to do a little more research on this machine, or on this core. And then the other thing I did was I got a BIOS and loaded a BIOS for it. And I believe you do that under plugin BIOS selector. Yeah. So there's the BIOS that I got for it right there. And I'm currently using the USA BIOS. So in the simplest terms, I pointed it to where my BIOS are, and I've told it to change that resolution and use this resolution that I wanted to do and put it in widescreen. And that is basically all I had to do with PCSX2 to get it configured to run my PlayStation 2 games. So the next thing I want to show you is BigBox. And I'm going to show you a neat little function here when I'm all done. But for now, let's go into BigBox, because there is some settings we want to change in BigBox. Now, once you get into BigBox, you're going to need to, the first time, press the escape key, which will then take you to the BigBox menu. You want to go down to Options, hit Enter, and then come all the way down to Controller and hit Enter. And make sure you select Enable Game Controllers. Don't select all controllers. If you do that, other people, if you're playing a game with them, will be able to control the interface under BigBox. So we're only going to set it up for this single game controller right there. So now that I've done that, now I'm switching to my game controller, and there you go. You can see me getting around with my game controller. Right? Okay. So, the other thing you want to do is once you get your controller set up, come back in here to options. Now, you need to perform a keyboard or a controller mapping. And the one I'm going to recommend you change, and the only one I'm going to recommend you change, is, let's see, pause. Show pause screen, button 5 and button 6. Now, some people tell you you need to set up an exit button. I'm going to tell you no. I'm going to tell you the only thing you want is the pause screen. Now, the way you do this is if you have something in there that's wrong, you hit the enter key and press the escape key on your keyboard. That'll clear it out. If you press enter, it'll tell you how to set it up. So I want to use 2 buttons so that I don't hit this by mistake. Let's go back and see if it's worked. Yeah, button 5, button 6. So that, now I have a pause screen I set up, so if I want to pause the game or exit it, and I'll show you where that comes into play. I could have just chose exit, but if you do that, it'll just jump right out of the game. And if you hit it by mistake, I find it's a lot easier to rectify if you just show it to pause. So I'm going to show you what that does. I'm going to go out to Big Box now, and let's launch let's go get a Sega Genesis game. We'll launch, let's see, Sonic the Hedgehog. There we go. And I'm just pressing the green button on my controller to get where I am. So you see how it's all automatic, and it automatically launches the game, and it knows I've got a controller, and the controller works, and I can press the start button, and I can start pretending I'm playing this game. And there I go. And I suck at video games. So I'm just kind of blazing through this, trying to get through. There we go. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. Actually, I'm not doing too bad when I don't try. Okay, but now I want to pause the game. So right and left triggers or clickers. There you go. So now the beauty of not exiting, a lot of people set up this button and this button to exit a game or to pause it. I just find these two little top buttons here. I don't use them for much of anything else. This one and this one. That it brings up the pause menu, and this way I can save the game or whatever, resume it, or I can hit the button and exit it, and it brings me right back down into Big Box. So there you see. Now, PS2 games. So most of my PS2 games are in the 7-zip format, except for Ratchet and Clank. I have this one in a ISO file, but you see it's misidentifying it. So, but say for example, I want to play Lego Star Wars 2, the original trilogy. Well, that's all fine and good. So I'm going to hit the button to launch it, and I'm going to tell it play, but you're going to see a loading screen come up. So, and you got this nice little spinning disc up here. So it's just like if you were playing it on the real PS2. It takes a while for these ROM images to load. Some of them are 4 or 5 gig in size, as large as a DVD drive was back then, because that's what they basically wrote these images on. So this one's fortunately is only 900 meg, so it's coming up rather quickly. But if you don't have Big Box, you won't see this under Launchbox. If you try to launch this game under Launchbox, it'll just sit there and you'll think, oh my god, it's locked up. No, not so under Big Box. You get all the little animations. It's kind of a nice touch, because if you ever remember owning a PS2 back in the day, they weren't real fast. And you definitely, I should have closed the blinds behind me. Pardon me for that. You definitely can remember it. So, let's see if I can get the game to start. And I've turned off the sound. I just don't want a copyright strike. So new game. Yeah, there you go. It's working. So I can go around and jump and shoot things and find stuff, find treasure, slap people around. I like that. Okay, and when I'm all done, left, right, and I can resume it, I can save it, load it, or just simply get the hell out of there and exit. So there you go. Big box is set up, Launchbox is set up. I've got my emulators set up, RetroArch. I've got the PSX emulator set up. Everything's working like a charm. So to exit out of this and get back to the desktop, I just press my back button, my red button, until I get back here to this menu and choose exit. Now, one of the other nice things I did is I've set this up to do what's called an auto login. And there's a script you can use. Microsoft, actually, I think it was a Microsoft script. I'll put the links to it down below in the notes, but basically you run this program called Auto Launch, and actually I can probably do that. Well, I got you here. Go up to downloads, because that's where I put it. I'm sorry, it's called Auto Login. And you just double click on it, tell it yes. So right now, the username that's going to be automatically logged on is Cody. And remember, I create a Active Directory domain user. I put in the domain, Uncle Joe's Playhouse, UJP, and then the password, and then just simply click enable. And what that does, it'll create a it'll create a hash for the password, so that if somebody were to come in and get into your registry or whatever, if they see the key in there for the auto login, it will encrypt, not encrypt, but it'll hash the password, so it won't put your password on display. So now, anytime this machine restarts, or is brought up for the first time, hang on a second here, I'm trying to do this from the side. So I'm going to go ahead and restart this machine. And keep this in mind, this is the bench unit, this is the motherboard we got from the slow boat to China, and it's running an i7-3770 processor, I believe. But in a second here, and I've rebooted the machine, boom, it comes up, logs in to the network, and on my living room unit, it'll launch Big Box. And the way you launch Big Box automatically is I'm going to go into, I create a shortcut for Launchbox, which is basically in my users folder, Cody. So if I come to Cody users folder, one thing you have to do is you have to go under view, go to options, and on view, on the view tab, you have to show hidden files, folders, and drives. Because the folder you want to come into is the app data folder. Now this is, yours could be different here. It could be if your username is Joe or Frida or Ignatia or whatever, it'll say that here under users, and you want to make sure you're in the right one. Come on under app data, roaming, Microsoft, Windows, start menu, programs, and startup. And if you put a shortcut to the program you want to launch automatically in there, every time you reboot your computer, that program will restart. So I was correct. It is an i7-3770. We've got 16 gig of RAM. And we have I was wrong on the video card. It's an RX 570 video card. Now, as an addendum to this video, one thing I did learn for the PS2 emulator is I came back to all of my ROMs, and I actually took them out of, they were in 7-zip format, and I took them out of the archive and separated them. And what it did was, for every ROM I have, it created an ISO file in a subdirectory with the name of the game under it. And that, as you will see here in a second, loads much faster with the PSP or PCSX2. So I'm going to go back into Big Box real quick, and then if I go down to my PS2 games, let's just do God of War for an example, which is a very large game. So now if I hit on play, it shows me the spinning disc icon, but only for about 10-15 seconds, and then boom, it's into the game. So I would strongly recommend you do something like this. Now the buttons I have to get out of a game are the right hat and the left hat pressed in that order, actually left hat, right hat, and then you can exit the game and come back to Big Box. But I wanted to share that little tip with you. That'll keep you from having to extract the archive every time you go to play the game. If you just extract it using 7-zip, because that's how my ROMs were compressed that I got for my games, and put them into their individual directories, and then rescan that directory with Launchbox, you should be good to go, and it won't take as long to load them. Well, there you go. I got it set up, got it running. Granted, again, it wasn't a soup to nuts video. I just really didn't want to do that kind of thing. I went over things as quickly as I could and over the key points. I'm sure there's something I missed, but as I learn more about Launchbox, Big Box, and Launchbox and Big Box, they're kind of synonymous. I highly recommend you go ahead and you pay for Launchbox or Big Box. It's well worth the money they're asking for it. It's worth every penny. Also, throw some money to RetroArch's way. I just found in my setup it was easier to use RetroArch as my emulator, use Launchbox and Big Box to manage my media and my cover art and that kind of thing, just to make my life easy. And to me, running RetroArch is the easiest way to do it. I couldn't afford some of these game systems when I was, in my 20s and 30s, but I can afford these. I can afford to put together an emulation station basically out of parts from a third generation Intel i7 CPU. You can probably get on eBay for 20 or 30 bucks. So if you want to get into retro gaming, look, I've thrown this together with used parts. Even the unit in the living room it's only got I think it's an i5 47, so a 4th gen i7 or i5 processor. So you don't need a lot of oomph to do this retro gaming. Now, if you're starting to talk about PS3 gaming and Xbox 360 emulation, you're probably just better off, especially as far as Xbox is concerned, because it's pretty much backwards compatible. Getting one of these beauties, the Xbox One S, it'll pretty much play anything you have. You can even do emulation on the Xbox One S. So if building a PC is not your style, consider something like that, and running it in development mode. You can do that rather easily, and run RetroArch and Big Box, and well, not Big Box and Launchbox, but RetroArch you can run on there in development mode. So that's an option as well. But for me, I wanted to set up a couple of PCs, and this bench unit just sits here pretty much not doing anything anyway. But I've always wanted to go back to those old games that I never played, and some of them I play with the spouse. Some of them I've never played before, like God of War. I'm interested. I want to play that, and I'm trying to find things to occupy my evening time with instead of staring into the idiot box, as they say. So that's what this video was all about, getting that up and running. I'm glad you came along for the ride. So there you go, folks. We hope you found the video entertaining and informative. As always, please give us a thumbs up down below. Leave your comments down in the comments section. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and click that notification bell to be notified of new videos when they come out. Donate if you're so inclined. We accept PayPal, Patreon, and the YouTube join function. So make sure to come back and see us again, and please don't forget, we'll see all of you on the other side.